Hey folks, and welcome to the Daily Ratings Podcast. It's a show where each week we're going to be sitting down with Vincent Daly to get his thoughts on the latest movies he's been watching, both older films and new releases. And don't worry, there's no spoilers. Vince will give a brief review of the movie, share some thoughts, and of course, then rate the film. The daily ratings are always fair, honest, and most importantly, they're consistent. On today's show, Vince will be rating and reviewing. We have an all-new release week here, folks. So, we have Damsel, directed by Juan Carlos Fresnadillo, Ricky Stanicky by Peter Farrelly. We have Spaceman by Johan Renck, Problemista by Julio Torres, Immaculate by Michael Mohan, Love Lies Bleeding by Rose Glass, Roadhouse by Doug Liman, and finally, Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire, directed by Adam Wingard. So we have a massive 8-movie episode week, folks, something. It's a monster. Enjoy it. Stay tuned. We'll bring you in right away, Ben.
We're running the clock.
I really got tripped up on that one, Pete. How was your weekend? What did you do here? Why did you do this to yourself?
Q1 catch-up. We didn't. I don't think we talked about it in the podcast, but March was kind of awkwardly paced. That everything was coming out after like the 21st, including a lot of these streaming ones. April is jam-packed. Not to mention the most important episode of the year, your birthday episode.
We got your big one coming up next week. Birthday is next week, so it is. I do like this catch-up because there were some releases while we had 2 specials in March.
Yeah.
We had Fred Astaire, and then we had the deep dive into No Country.
Yeah.
So, and we had like Love Lies Bleeding was somewhere in there. So it's good to
Exactly.
good to go back and just get all these March films and so many streaming movies.
Exactly. Honestly, it was really going to be the 4 new releases, theater releases, and then just Roadhouse. But then I was like, when am I ever going to get past these streaming? Not that anyone really needs heads or tails on a lot of these movies, especially for the ease in watching them.
Yeah.
But I thought it was important to do kind of a Q1 catch-up and not leave too much left behind for whenever I would get to it.
So we have 4 in-theater movies, and then 4 the streaming. Which out of the streaming were you most familiar with or most excited for? Or which one did you think was actually the most popular?
I think Roadhouse, just because of the media circuit with Jake Gyllenhaal, UFC, and then Conor McGregor kind of now being everyone's looking to him for what's going to be the next acting move,
If he gets another acting job out of this one.
Exactly. I honestly cannot wait to talk about Roadhouse.
I would say Roadhouse as well.
Yeah.
After that, Spaceman, I thought was going to be bigger just because it's Adam Sandler.
You put that on my radar. Yeah.
But I think that, I don't know if I read one article about Spaceman.
Right.
It's such a small production.
Yeah. So, folks, the reviews are going to be a little shorter, especially with the streaming ones. If anything, in the writing process of this week, I really enjoyed, not really having to necessarily put in the full effort to reviews that are going to be so heads or tails anyway when it comes to streaming.
Right.
Not that I'm going to let the foot off the gas, because I feel like every film, especially with a strong team, strong director, deserves a fair shake that I give to any film. But I really enjoyed writing some shorter reviews, especially after the analysis of Ghostbusters and kind of having to defend the hill on my opinions.
Well, and then we went 2 hours on one film on No Country. It's kind of nice to do a quick draw.
Exactly.
And that they really don't need some of these long.
Yeah, exactly.
Long, we don't skin the whole deer, I guess. Or skin the whole cat.
The whole deer.
I'm all over the place today.
He's scrambled.
So, okay.
It was definitely a week, though, that I wanted to pair it with other movies.
Right.
I wanted to watch Saint Maud for Love Lies Bleeding's director.
Okay.
I wanted to watch the original Roadhouse for the new one. And I'll tell you what, I was just dying to watch Pacific Rim instead of Godzilla vs. Kong or Godzilla X Kong. So definitely the week of wanted alternate picks, but decided to just go for all the new ones.
We're gonna have to do Pacific Rim at some point.
I really
feel like I understand that it does have some love. You really like it a lot, and I think I have a deep hatred towards it.
This is just falling into
Last-
these Kong Skull Island hate watch.
Last time it was on, I watched it, but it was really late at night and had the volume totally down.
Oh, wonderful.
So I could barely hear it.
A fair
and I was
shake,
I couldn't believe how, man, I had such issues with it. And I just was like, I know it's bad. I don't even need to hear every single line said.
Well, that's continuing your rivalry. I mean, the deepest rivalry we have is not Blumhouse, is not Cameron or why can't I think of his name? The other horror director. It is you with Guillermo del Toro. Pacific.
He directs it. Oh, it's the least surprising thing. Then it's like the most boring movie.
Stop.
It's crazy.
All right, I don't represent that.
Do you know what I watched this week?
I just know Roadhouse. And Roadhouse no less 2 times.
I did watch Roadhouse twice.
Was
I did
wild,
watch Roadhouse. Does that mean good? Does that mean bad? You're going to stay tuned. Or just jump ahead on the podcast. What did I watch? I watched Spaceman, Roadhouse, and Godzilla Kong.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. I thought I'd surprise you.
Yeah.
In fact, we went almost the exact same time. I was on my way to the theater booking my ticket, and that's when the heads up came, the reminder on my phone that you needed to go see a movie.
That's correct.
Because when you book the tickets, it also goes on my calendar for whatever reason. We're so connected now. So I watched Stray. I wanted to see Love Lies Bleeding. Couldn't get there in time.
Yeah,
to
it's
the
probably
theater.
knocked out entirely now.
In fact, today. Thursday.
Really?
Thursday is going to be the last day.
Problemista is probably the same thing.
That's
and
a lie,
that's the real
actually.
shame of it.
Limited theaters.
Sure.
Actually, that's a lie. Problemista, yes, much more of a problem to go see.
Yeah, it's a shame because these are interesting films, like very new in their voice and their stylings, and
I'm excited to talk about them.
Yeah,
especially Love Lies Bleeding.
Yeah.
And Problemista, I mean, Tilda Swinton looks whack.
So she's wild. She's wild.
Love Tildy. All right.
Love Tildy.
All right. So we're gonna do the 4. Any opening notes, or we'll set it off here?
No.
All right.
That's it.
Let's get into this.
into it.
8 movies to cover here. Let's do the 4.
We should have like a roulette wheel or something like that.
That would be fun. If we were on video, it would be a little bit more fun.
Yeah, right.
Let's just start with Damsel.
Sure.
I'm hearing the least amount about it.
Okay.
I'm sure the kids are more into it because we got Millie Bobby Brown. But this is Damsel, a Netflix release directed by Juan Carlos Fresnadijo. Well, you go ahead and say the last
No,
name.
honestly, I don't even have it written down.
Okay.
So it's good enough for me.
Damsel, this is playing off of Damsel in Distress, correct? A little bit?
Kind
Fairy
of.
tale
Yeah,
type
yeah,
things?
yeah,
but
exactly.
In a more kind of badass Millie Bobby Brown way?
Oddly enough, kind of like a fantasy survival movie, which is,
All right, well, let's get into it. How'd you like it?
Well, not intentionally, folks, but over the course of the podcast, we have skipped over the growing career of Millie Bobby Brown. Netflix's favorite begins, of course, with Stranger Things, but has since expanded into 2 Enola Holmes movies, and now a further branch out into this. And while I didn't expect a huge performance out of this movie, I was a little surprised by her acting here. There is a singular spotlight on Millie Bobby Brown here, some demanding action. I think, honestly, pushed Millie out of her comfort zone a little bit. Damsel is a young adult fantasy with sprinkles of survival film. Princess of a Dying Kingdom is married off to a world of opulence until that dream is shattered right in front of her eyes. Fantasy-wise, we've talked a lot about defining fantasy on the podcast, or at least a fair amount. This is somewhere between low and high fantasy. What I mean by that is it has dragons, but only human races and seemingly no magic. So we'll call it a Game of Thrones mid-fantasy or something like that.
Swords.
Yeah. Swords.
Swords with nothing too crazy.
Yeah. Dragon, but no other creatures. No magic.
Yeah.
So it's, defining it is already troublesome. Defining fantasy in general. The main stretch of the story, though, and I'll be honest, this is a very, it's not a long movie. The trailer kind of shows everything to it. The main stretch of the story, she gets trapped with a dragon in a cave. In a slight survival setup, tries her best not to become Millie Bobby Burnt. Give me a rating. I need you to start rating my jokes. I thought
Zero shoes.
I thought that was gonna hit.
All right,
Brown to Bird.
I'll give you a flip flop. I'll give you a Tommy flip on that.
Oh man, I got a lot of jokes this episode too. I ran that joke actually by someone today, and it didn't work either. So that should have been the sign. I would say, is the fantasy super inventive? No, but I thought the effects looked pretty good. And surviving in this cave with a dragon, with a monster, is just enough of a switch up in the genre, or at least the setup of the story, to kind of grab my attention. I feel like at the best moments, it had that problem solving that I always reference. That I like seeing characters interact with their surroundings, kind of build some tools and work smart. And in a fantasy setting, this kind of scratched that itch in that way.
Yeah, problem solving. This is solving puzzles in a sense.
Exactly. The simplicity of the movie actually comes off as a strength for me, but with one of the worst cut trailers I've seen in a while, I could understand it not living up to the expectations of probably the many leftover Game of Thrones fans wandering lost, just looking for more content to hoard.
Yeah, do you think that it's poorly cut because it tells the whole movie? Or poorly
yes.
cut? Okay, yeah.
Tells the whole movie.
Such an issue with...
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a constant...
Exactly. And there's not already, again, it's simple. It's not a problem with it, though. Talk about simple in a lot of these films.
Yeah.
But yeah, just something to it that grabbed my attention slightly, not too much more, and certainly not something that I saw from Millie Bobby Brown's career to really step out of what I would call kind of a comfort zone for her. So, with that said, I told you it's going to be short.
I love it. Yeah.
We're going to go ahead and give Damsel a 52. Well in the Netflix fodder territory.
This is exactly, yeah. Truly, these low-lying 50s, or if you're in the 50s, it really has become a classic Netflix thing for us.
Yep.
As far as Millie Bobby Brown goes, does she still seem like a kid, or has she now become like a young adult?
I think young adult, both in how demanding and single spotlight this role is.
Yeah.
But also, I think a few things done, like she is the older sister to a younger one.
Right.
I feel like things are being done to kind of separate her from the kid pack of Stranger Things.
Yeah, because screen presence, when you watch Stranger Things, you're watching kids. It does have a different vibe to it.
Yep.
Now, the one thing with Stranger Things is, thankfully, it's like, wow, this is some of the best kid acting.
Sure.
There is.
Right.
But I think it's now she's doing the switch of...
Says a person that's only seen season 1. Brilliantly,
when they were the most kids. Yes.
Right. Yeah, but you're dead on the money, because when it comes to even those Enola Holmes movies, it's very much like
director. When you say Nola Holmes,
Enola Holmes, it's
Okay.
like a kid Sherlock Holmes vibe.
No idea she was even attached to it.
We didn't cover it. There's 2 of them. I think one came out during the course of the podcast, but still very much a kid detective vibe. This is the first to kind of separate itself a little bit.
I don't know the numbers. I don't know if anybody knows the numbers. I almost think that this is probably doing okay on Netflix.
Sure.
Because of anyone under the age of 25 or 24 or whatever,
And also in a week where CGI was definitely a little spotty, oddly enough, this had some decent CGI, like the design of the dragon. The fire was like very creative. It was almost like lava sticky. It's cool.
I have no doubt that Netflix overpaid for a 52% film. Let's keep it going here. We're going to jump to Amazon now, which I think is another one that people don't care about.
Sure.
I don't know. We'll see. I don't know the numbers on it. We probably never will with Amazon. But this is, let's just do Ricky Stanicky. This is just a straight up rated R comedy.
Yep.
The biggest promotion this had was John Cena being naked at the Oscars.
Oh, that's right.
And that was probably the best marketing that this film got at all.
Sure, and he plays a raunchy role. You didn't see this one?
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Zac Efron is starring, and like I said, John Cena is in it with some comedians also. How did we like Ricky Stanicky?
Well, Ricky Stanicky is in the long line of comedies where the premise is a weirdo attaches themselves to our lead star. The setup is usually that our weirdo is being taken advantage of in some way, until it turns out they are actually holding the cards all along. The examples of this are countless, folks. John Candy movies, The Cable Guy, Dinner for Schmucks, Due Date, The Wrong Missy, and countless 2010 Judd Apatow wannabes in this.
Yeah, but those things that you just laid out, those are good films.
Fair. Well, maybe not all of them.
The Wrong Missy, I think, is probably one of the best comedies in the past 5 years.
What?
I've probably watched it 3 or 4 times.
That's a hot take. That's a hot take right there. Unexpected. I'm gonna leave that one be because I definitely don't want to watch another, Happy Gilmore, Happy Madison, Adam Sandler property. I would say if you widen that lens or that genre to rom-com, that list easily triples. For these movies, it is less about the structure to the comedy and more about being kind of a vehicle for the talent. And I'm sorry to say there was just kind of nothing for me here. Efron isn't funny. I'm not trying to really pick a bone with Efron's acting. I know I was definitely lukewarm on Iron Claw late last year. I don't know. It's almost like he doesn't try in a lot of scenarios.
Did you ever see Neighbors?
No.
Yeah. Okay,
is that the one
neither.
with? Oh no,
Rogen?
I know where your Neighbors is. Yeah,
But that's I'm saying. Like that's the only other time I can think of us seeing him in comedy chops as he's on this. Yeah, as he's like out of Disney World. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. I would say good for Andrew Santino breaking out of podcasting, kind of being with the comedian vehicles. I thought it was okay. Jermaine Fowler, kind of whatever. Again, I enjoyed seeing him have something else besides, I believe the last time I saw him was Sorry to Bother You. But most of all, I just hate John Cena.
It's just really tough.
Yeah, his shtick, I don't know. It's just not for me. I'll say that. I don't feel like this needs to have an examination of his exact comedic role. And he does have a huge role in this. So I think this is a double-edged sword. For me, not something to work. If you are a fan of John Cena, whether that be the slew of comedies he's been in the last 6 years or so, from action roles and then even Peacemaker on the superhero front, it's really all the same John Cena you've been liking.
Yeah.
So I think that's equally a positive. For me, it was a negative. And folks, I think my thoughts with this is that I would love comedies to come back to life and have a place in theaters instead of being dumped on streaming. I feel like comedies have really lost their place in theaters. What are your thoughts on that?
I just think that I'm getting a good feeling about 2024 that I feel like movies are back a little bit.
Sure.
And that's nice. But it's tough with a film like this. I'm sure the budget wasn't that big on it, but I don't know if comedies do well. Like Jennifer Lawrence came out with that one.
You sure?
Didn't really do that well.
Yep.
Other ones was the Nick Cage one where he played Nick Cage.
Oh,
Like the movie, but financially it wasn't like any type of big success or something that could be worth it to take a risk on that film. And I could probably name a couple more. And I agree with you. It would be nice to see a reboot of the comedy. But I don't think we've seen it. I think it's a talent that's going to drive it and not just comedy films.
Exactly.
So
that's exactly where I was coming at this film, was just that, well, if it's going to be less about the structure or being inventive or like a satire or something like that, and more about just like, let's put these people together in a room.
Yeah.
I thought it was a really like lackluster cast. I mean, John Cena really is the only pillar here as far as...
That's Zac Efron.
I'm
not for us, but I know.
He's not funny. He's not. He doesn't even try to be funny. I guess, to be fair, Andrew Santino, he's kind of, he's a comedian's comedian.
Yeah. Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's my place on comedy. Do you see what I'm saying? Where just like we had the old school, you even said John Candy, old school SNL guys. Then we had kind of 90s SNL guys, and Sandler had that. And he drove his comedy scene. And then finally we had the...
Definitely Apatow.
That's what. Yeah, we had Apatow came up, and that's once when that crew had their time. The Seth Rogens and Franco, whatever.
For sure.
We don't have anything else seemingly on the rise.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. I don't think you can just put comedies in a theater and have it be enough. I think we need a new crew or a new writer/director that can get us somewhere.
Something electric that's happening in the writing room, and then have that translate to the same talent or just someone that can fill that.
Yeah. And it's tough because, I mean, we live on a YouTube podcasting type world where SNL... The crews of SNL used to drive stories, and it used to be the biggest things, and it would be like a culture of the SNL that we as viewers would follow.
Yeah, now that's diminished.
Now it's interesting because it's so much audio, like I said, with podcasts or YouTube. How are we going to find the next group of guys and girls?
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's interesting pool to have to pull from.
And then not only that, have studios recognize it then and give them
put money
the
towards
leash,
it.
To get to theaters. But overall, Ricky Stanicky was not making that jump, folks. It was not making the jump to theater. And like I said, this is really where, if anything, for comedies like this, I could write endlessly about them,
Right.
To pinpoint what's not working for me. But I feel like I'm still going to be walking away with a soft recommendation either way. For if you really love any of the talent here, it's still a soft recommendation because very much falls into that definition of streaming fodder that you'll put it on, you'll see it, and probably forget about it in a couple days. We're going to go ahead and give Ricky Stanicky a 45.
45. Under the 50% mark. I tell you what, though, for how little I would cared about this film, and I think most people cared, 45 almost is pulling some weight there.
Fair.
Could be in the 20s or 30s, honestly.
Right, if I really wanted to take my knives out. Yeah.
But and there's one other thing to these comedies where I think that people are trying to do, and it is streaming. It's almost like, let's pick up comedians, give them a shot, let people do some writing, low budget film, we'll put them on streaming. Like you have Bill Burr's Old Dads coming on Netflix.
Oh, okay.
We didn't even cover it.
Yeah.
You know, but that came out recently. And then you even think back to King of Staten Island with the
Pete Davidson.
Right, exactly.
What were you going to call him? I'm curious what was going to be the shorthand there.
I was going to be nice and just say the goofy guy. I could have so much harsh words. And now Amazon is doing this where it's like, okay, get the redhead guy.
Andrew Santino.
Right. It's let's get some main actors too. Pair 'em with some comedians that are on the rise, that
have
doing
some
well in the
gimme
podcast
audience
world.
that'll follow them.
Right. And I don't know, the formula doesn't seem to be working.
Yeah.
As far as like quality content.
Yeah, and even taking 45, is that a good score? No, but kind of taking my own preference out of it. If I was really to judge this just like in comparison to how other comedies work, even modern comedies, I still think it's kind of scoring a little below average for what it's going after.
I'm sure it is.
And the type of jokes and the type of setup there.
Weak.
If anything, to your comparison, like these weirdo attaching them to the lead star comedies, usually they are. That's a recipe for success. You know,
right.
The list I ran down. So hopefully the Ricky Stanicky stands aren't gonna be that pitchforks.
I think we'll be okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think we'll jump back. No, let's jump back to Netflix now.
Yep.
Again, we'll bring in one that I've actually watched. This is Spaceman, which I think maybe if people have a Netflix account, they're going to be familiar as they shoved it out for maybe the first 2 weeks.
Yep.
It's just Adam Sandler with a lot of Adam Sandler, kind of like an Indian-made film.
Oh, really?
Well, I don't know.
Wait, Indian-made? Really?
Well, not like Indian Productions. It's a U.S. Netflix-made film.
Okay,
but as far as, like, I think writing team, directing, I don't know Johan Rank at all. Oh, and it was an Indian book, I believe.
Oh,
An Indian story.
Interesting.
Anyway, it's called Spaceman. Let's get into it. How did you like it? First, you know what? I have a good idea. This is what I would like to do because I saw this and immediately started laughing. So I have to make a note of this and bring it on the podcast.
All right.
You know, I'm putting this on this site, and I take, when I do the summaries, I try to take it actually serious. I never just copy and paste.
Sure,
just blindly. I actually try to see what are these guys saying, about the film.
Yeah.
I always critique. I try to take from Wiki because it's open source
a
lot, but I'll go to Google, and usually it's just too long and they give away too much. I actually want to be very broad with when I do it. So this is what Google's. If you were about to watch Spaceman and you Google it, here is the description for Spaceman.
Here's the pitch.
Okay. Jakub Prajaska was raised by his grandparents in the Czech countryside after being abandoned as a young boy. He works as a scientist before trying to become the Czech Republic's first astronaut. Now, is that this movie? Is that this movie? I think not.
Yeah, maybe the summer reading for the movie.
I mean, what? I mean, grandparents in the countryside? No.
We don't see his journey. We don't. Yeah, no.
Nothing about arachnophobia. I mean, nothing.
Right.
I read that and I was like, this is not this movie. Spaceman, it's a very small story, but again, let's get into it, and we'll go back and forth on it. How did you like Spaceman?
Well, I thought it was very, very meh. I'll say this. I mean, I had fun watching it for the fact that Adam Sandler, once again, is fulfilling his Netflix contract. Tom, one of my favorite taglines for a movie is 1979's must-watch Alien. The tagline is, "In space, no one can hear you scream." I would like to borrow that for this movie, but change it slightly. I'm going to change it to, "In space, no one can hear you scream when you see Adam Sandler's basketball shorts in Zero G." Give me a rating on that one.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's
right,
two shoes and a lady.
I got one more.
Okay.
I got another one. 2001, A Schlub Odyssey.
right, not bad.
I thought that was the better of the two. Now, the reviews are now just boiled down to me telling you jokes. It's not even a review anymore. Spaceman takes place in an alternate history future where a Soviet-Czech space program sends a single astronaut far past Jupiter to investigate an anomaly. That's where the 2001 vibes kind of come in, especially with Jupiter. The journey is shown to take a deep psychological toll on Sandler, putting him in a state of depressive reflection that kind of just drives him very much crazy in this isolation. So crazy, in fact, he starts seeing a giant alien spider that speaks to him like a calming therapist as they drift through their feelings in the endless void. Like I said, as our yearly dose of Adam Sandler, this satisfies both the requirement of his evergreen Netflix contract and people vomiting the opinion of, no, really, he's actually a good dramatic actor. That slowly...
I've come to your side on this now.
Oh, good.
He's not.
Good.
It's just, what form of Adam Sandler are we getting? Because
Right.
as soon as he talks, it's just, you're not buying the character at
Right.
all.
Yeah,
Like
I
when he's
didn't
on
even attempt a Russian, Czech, Soviet accent
I guess
here.
this is a Czech movie, I guess I
Yeah.
should say. Kind of
Well,
a Czech if it's a Czech-based book.
If you researched... Well, I don't know.
I don't know much research on
Yeah,
it.
neither did I, so we're going to just leave it there.
But I mean, when he's talking to like home base or whatever,
Yeah.
you know, when he's doing the screen, the way he talks, he still has a little bit of the. It still has a little bit of.
Still
I'm not going
Sandlerism.
to try it.
Yeah,
But
right.
yeah, Sandlerism exactly.
Yeah, I mean, while I didn't think this was horrible, I would say it kind of comes off undercooked, somewhere between a real movie and a, shelved Twilight Zone, Black Mirror-esque episode. And I feel like this, in one of our theater releases, just could have actually used some breath, whether that came from runtime or whether that came from kind of fleshing out concepts a little bit more to make the jump into more of a real movie or more of a real feeling feature. I really don't have a lot to say about this because my criticism, my kind of cynicism aside with Sandler's Netflix contract.
Yeah.
If you like Sandler, that's a good collaboration. You're getting a lot of projects that he's leading and directing.
And this is a weird one. This is him going a little bit different for sure.
Exactly. So I feel like this once again can kind of fit into. It's got to be the right audience.
It's a moody film.
Yeah.
Don't expect. I mean, it's meant to be emotional and
Yes.
moody and not really tug at anything else than that.
Right,
Yeah.
right. It's kind of wallowing in its sadness,
Yeah.
which is not terrible. I mean, it's about a guy in a spaceship. I mean, I feel like playing on his insecurities, the madness that comes with that. I would say the story went where I wanted it to go.
Yeah.
But just undercooked where I think it could have gone a lot farther, and definitely had no reason not being a Twilight Zone Black Mirror episode, cutting 30 minutes off of it or something like that.
Right, yeah.
So, in all sincerity, folks, because I root for sci-fis here. If this was an enjoyable story that you digged, the mix, particularly of psychological and sci-fi, I cannot recommend more highly checking out 1972 sci-fi masterpiece Solaris, and hell, it's even made by a Russian to boot. We're going to go ahead and give Spaceman a 49.
Oh, you made me a cheeky 49.
That is a cheeky score.
Yeah, it's tough to even talk about, too, because it's such a small, contained film.
Yeah, right.
But, I mean, my biggest note was this is a less fun Moon, which is 2009.
Yes.
With, I can never remember the actor's
Sam
name.
Rockwell.
Sam Rockwell, and you have a guy he's dealing with, which is Kevin Spacey, voicing the creature, which is a robot. And in this, you have Adam Sandler basically stuck in a thing with
Paul Dano.
the spider, which is Paul Dano.
Yep.
So it's very much, I have less fun Moon meets a much worse Interstellar.
And honestly, to your point, I think Moon might be even a closer recommendation, as far as not going full art house, as far as it, or at least staying in the same kind of, 2000s.
Right. And for a second, the film had me. I mean, it was getting towards the end, and I'm just like, maybe I'm sinking into the emotionalness of it as much as not going on. Carey Mulligan is also in it, too.
Yep.
And But it just ends, and I didn't know if my time was actually wasted or not, or if I enjoyed it. You know what I mean?
And that is
bit of a coin toss,
streaming fodder.
a bit of a
It's just
49%. Yeah,
you're not exactly mad, but the time has been spent, and you're left in
Right.
with the check basically. So, yeah, I didn't want to be mean to Carey Mulligan, but it definitely felt. Now that I realize you've watched this film, to you, did it feel like a leftover of Maestro acting? As far as like kind of sadness and wallowing and.
No, I really didn't know what to think of Carey Mulligan. I mean, we are now Carey Mulligan fans.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
She's rising in our ranks
For
as
sure.
as actress. Maybe she would be in top 10 for us.
Personally, no, but not knocking her in the same way.
Top 15 maybe.
Sure. Sure. Gun to my head, sure. It's hard to remember that many
But
names.
no real thoughts on
Spaceman.
on Carey Mulligan, I would say.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I did want to mention Kunal Nair, the guy who is kind of dealing with Adam Sandler. He's
Sure.
back at Mission Control.
Yeah.
This is a much better series. I like him acting seriously.
Really?
He plays Raj in Big Bang Theory.
Oh.
Where he's just
I didn't even notice that. Wow.
Yeah, he's
What's
like
that guy?
over the top. They just make him over the top
Sure.
indie and nerdy guy.
Yeah.
Him in this role of like being serious, I kind of liked it, and I was like,
Yeah.
I could enjoy seeing him in more dramas. Actually,
Sure.
I
Well,
kind of
fingers
enjoyed his
crossed for
presence.
the next Sandler project coming out now.
Okay, we got one more. We're going to jump back to Amazon now, and kind of like we talked about in the beginning, we definitely both think that this is the biggest streaming release and the most. It's been talked about the most ever since his UFC appearance last year. This is Roadhouse, a complete redo of 1989.
Yes.
They tried to do Roadhouse 2, I think, in the 2000s, which
Oh, really?
totally failed. Yeah, no one even pays attention. Totally failed.
Wow.
So this is just taking the exact same name, Jake Gyllenhaal, and
It is a remix in a lot of ways. I mean, yes, it's about kind of a man with no name defending a bar from ruffians.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
I mean, I feel like the locale, the feel of the bar itself, the feel of the action. I think it's so different.
I think they needed to, though, to keep this. Directed by Doug Liman. People really wanted to have a theater release.
Oh, yeah. Wasn't there some drama with Gyllenhaal or something like that?
Well, both Gyllenhaal and director Doug Liman pushed for it. The studio backed away from it. Apparently, they went over the head of Amazon's video production person, like the person who deals with Amazon Video. They went over that person and did a private screening on Jeff Bezos' yacht.
Whoa!
This is what it was said anyway. And they still couldn't get it released in theaters. And so much so, the director, Doug Liman, was so pissed that when it premiered, the only theater that it was ever in was during the premiere, I believe, at South by Southwest.
Okay.
And Doug Liman didn't even show up for it at a protest.
And then that's what I think that landed on my radar, because I heard that there was like a
did.
boycott within the crew.
Correct, exactly.
Interesting.
Because they wanted to be in theater.
Folks, if you've seen this movie, you can grasp how hysterical that is. Imagining Jeff Bezos watching this.
I
movie.
hope it's true.
I really hope that's true.
I hope it's true.
On a yacht too, amazing.
And Jeff Bezos' yacht.
Incredible. Conor McGregor should have shown up and burned down the yacht then.
Yeah. I don't think Conor McGregor was invited on the yacht. Okay,
man.
Roadhouse, Finn. I watched the original in preparation.
Yes.
And I'll say right away, really like the original.
Oh yeah,
I mean, I
think it's a cool movie.
We're definitely two shoes shine somewhere in there.
Love it. Wow, really?
I don't know if I'll get a lace, but maybe I don't know. I liked it a lot.
And that's why I really wanted to pair the original, but so be it.
So be it.
So be it.
How did you like it?
First note, oh boy. Oh boy. I thought this was real bad. I wanted to watch the original this week, especially because we found it actually wasn't on the previous rated for the website, despite kind of a semi-recent rewatch for the podcast. But really, it was mostly to just call heads or tails on if this was better than the OG, if the action was better, if the any aspect was better than the OG.
We didn't even hold a candle to it. Even.
Right. I mean, folks, no more than 15 minutes in this film will answer that particular question. This was one of the most vapid, lifeless experiences that I've had to cover on the podcast. And it takes this ongoing theme of this episode, made for streaming feel, to an entirely new level. This is a straight up fake movie. I was originally excited to see director Doug Liman. Funny enough, we covered 1996's Swingers last year on the birthday episode.
Yes.
That was Liman. And, while his career, certainly, there's some hidden gems. I hope this might fall into those hidden gems. Definitely not the case, however. In fact, this might be the lumpiest piece of coal in the whole damn mine. I mean, Christ, this has to be one of the most awkward, bow-legged scripts ever written. The pacing, the chemistry, the dialogue all feel suspiciously disconnected. I'm raising a red flag right away, and I think this is a fourth writer of the AI persuasion working on this, or maybe started as an AI script and then a writer punched it up.
I don't know, man. With how much they love this film and making it, and wanting it so hard to push towards theaters.
Right.
I think there's a lot of heart in this film.
Wow.
Not saying it comes across on screen.
Sure.
Behind the lens.
Right. And it makes me question both Lyman's and Gyllenhaal's
I think it
kind
might
of
be,
judgment.
Right.
Of
I
this.
think it literally might be that shit.
Wow. Unreal.
What did you how you texted me? How far were you?
That was the 15 minutes.
Okay. What did you text me?
I think I said for the second week in a row I wanted to jump out of my skin.
Right. Yes. You said that's right. You said you said my skin is crawling.
Yeah.
And then I replied, goes down better on the second sip.
yeah, for real. I would say, the writing in this, it's you feel it. You feel it in the almost slight half breaths between people talking. Dialogue back and forth is very disjointed. Again, bow-legged is kind of what came to mind with this.
Stiff too, a little bit, very stiff. Doesn't flow naturally.
The thugs in this, as it relates to any action movie critique, no menace whatsoever in this, making Marvel-style quips and just lacking menace or threat for the action to benefit from. And nearly every scene just has zero rhythm or chemistry or anything. It was really mind-blowing. I mean, I really was shocked by how bad, especially before a punch is thrown, but especially before a fight happens.
Right.
How wow, jerky, how not connected these dialogue and the chemistry on scene is. Really, as soon as he lands in Florida, Gyllenhaal, that is, as soon as he lands in Florida, he talks to the little mom and pop shop. He scouts out the bar before actually accepting the job. All of that is a perfect example of what I mean by disconnected and feeling AI. If you're looking for the specifics of what I'm zoning in on.
Yeah.
Production wise, once again, I was slightly excited to see how the action would be done. The tech they used in this was stitching together 3 to 5 shots from different angles, and then in the edit, connecting, quote unquote, the punch.
You feel as though you're a little fly buzzing around all the action.
Yes. Very disappointed to say it looks pretty awful.
The CGI of it.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's this artificial edit to the actual physical fighting they're doing. They got buff dudes. Gyllenhaal's cut. It's bad in combination with some other CGI elements that just had no place in the fight scene, and I feel highlight the artificialness of how these fights are being stitched together in the edit or in post, basically.
Right.
And then to top it all off, I mean, there is constantly this, again, half-second breath to the end of every scene. If you watch, just really try to watch every scene, there is a 2-second pause to the edit between scene and scene. It is every single moment in the film plays out like this again and again. And I mean, some scenes are so awkwardly paced in the, to start with the stilted dialogue and kind of semi-bad action.
Yeah.
For me, it was so noticeable in the edit of just how every scene was almost formulaic. And once again, it kind of felt did an AI edit this? You know what I mean? Or did they, had some sort of plug-in to Adobe, and it was just kind of all right, it needs always a little bit of a gap at the end of the scene, and then we stitch the next one in. I mean, to me, the pacing, this whole artificiality, and definitely the lack of chemistry between characters on screen, it really felt to me, Tommy Wiseau's The Room. It captured almost a so bad it's good vibe that was building as I was watching this, and being very shocked by this movie.
There's something to that. There's something to so bad it's good.
Yeah.
And Tommy, it's obviously a very different film, but I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Where it's what's going on here. There's an awkwardness to the entire film.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's where it was it was almost it was the first draft of it almost. They could just use a couple more takes and iron things out.
They worked on it though, and they had this.
I know, and this was in the pipeline for some time.
It was.
That goes back to Top Gun Maverick when we first got the news of Gyllenhaal
Do
doing
the
this
UFC shot.
Yeah.
For early promotion and stuff.
Also, I don't
Wanting to
have
get shots
notes
for
on
the
it,
film.
but talk about a waste of that USC tie-in. I mean, it's for
Little weak.
a chopped up flashback.
Yeah,
basically.
little weak.
We get spoon-fed throughout the film. I mean, I kind of expected a spin of like more about the UFC, but whatever. We barely. I really don't have any notes for Jake Gyllenhaal as our lead, but
What?
I am. You want to take over?
Okay, yeah. If we can talk on Jake for at least a second.
Fair.
Good for him for getting very buff. His
Yes.
body looks good.
You're right.
For the role.
Yeah.
But okay, we have a Jake Gyllenhaal movie coming up. It's like, okay, what are we going to get? We're going to get Ambulance Jake Gyllenhaal? Or are we going to get a little bit of Nightcrawler?
Yeah.
We get a normal Jake Gyllenhaal, Prince of Persia Gyllenhaal.
Oh, sure, blockbuster Gyllenhaal.
What are we going to get here?
Yeah.
And what he decides to do with his speech is kind of normal.
Yeah.
But trying to act as like this overall good guy, nothing
Yeah.
affects him kind of blasé. Was a horrible choice.
Yeah.
The original Roadhouse is what's his name?
Swayze.
Yes. It is Swayze. Swayze is
Oh,
Roadhouse.
absolutely.
His charm, because it's like a B movie, it's an action movie, it's comedy.
Yep.
He sells it though. He sells his character. He becomes Dalton and wins you over.
Absolutely.
And he has a charm. He has a professionalism about him. Jake Gyllenhaal doesn't have that. He is going for a completely different vibe. And it doesn't sell at all. And it's weird. It's awkward. I would say it's closest to Nightcrawler, Gyllenhaal.
Yeah, he's a little sociopathic.
Because
in
he
this, for
seems
sure.
disconnected from everyone.
Yeah,
You know what I
especially
mean?
by the end. I mean,
But he's trying to be a nice guy at the same time, so
Yeah.
he's well spoken. But it's very annoying. It's not Dalton at all. It doesn't have at all the charm,
And
at
that's
all
where
the wit, at all. I mean, it's
I didn't really have any notes because I mean I know I liked Swayze in the first one and even though that movie's kind of trashed for some reason, I thought
know.
it was a decent movie.
the Roadhouse
Yeah.
is yeah.
Here
Everything that
is
Swayze
nothing.
has going for him, Jake Gyllenhaal does not, and it was a huge disappointment. He's just weird.
He is.
He's just chose a weird acting style to deliver these lines, and then he wasn't given a good script.
You're right.
I mean, it's terrible.
I feel like that's where why the majority of my notes were around kind of the production of it, because for me watching that movie was like, how did no one on set like stop like just say like, nah, this isn't working, or one more take, or
I think it must have felt good or something like that.
yeah, wild,
Terrible.
wild, doing something with McGregor in the bathroom.
Yeah, can we talk about? Are you going to jump straight to McGregor? Can I
Yeah.
talk about? Let me just talk about overall cast.
Sure.
Casting for the film was terrible.
Yep.
I didn't like the bartender girl, and
right.
we should have seen Jake Gyllenhaal should have had a scene where he had to fire her. This has none of the.
Should have had a fire.
This has none of the coolness and like. What's great about the original Roadhouse is
Mm-hmm.
Swayze comes in and whips the place into shape.
Yes.
And he has to like
That's
he
tried to be simulated here, but I don't feel
No,
like there's
not-
enough
There's not-
individual scenes dedicated to that.
Right, to him dealing with the staff.
Yeah.
He does no firing, basically. He does no whipping them into shape as far as, like, it's a couple scenes where he just tells them what to do or something. There's no building
Yeah.
to you actually feel like this guy is being super effective and that, like, no one could do what he does.
Sure.
You know what I
and
mean?
and in those moments is where you fall in love with Swayze in the original.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean,
through
Swayze-
competency,
Right,
basically.
So and then the casting was, I just felt like all wrong. The bar owner, I kind of liked her, but I didn't like her in that role.
I didn't like the bar, I'll tell you that.
The bar, I don't
mean, that I feel like tried to take the wire fence hardcore blues vibe of the first one, and it was just like it was a transplant in this like beach town. You know what I mean? It's not a hardcore bar at all. It was a tiki bar.
Right. Well, let me say this. I liked, if you're going to redo Roadhouse, you're either going to go right back to Small Town West,
Yep.
or you're going to have to reinvent. So the fact that they took it to the Florida Keys, I kind of, and like an offbeat island or whatever, I like the idea. In execution, it was really bad. But I do want to give them credit for at least trying to be reinventive of that.
Sure.
But you're right. Everything was bad.
Right.
Other than
Lacked
that,
the grit of
right.
the first.
And then the gang casting was ridiculous. The guy who was like Dalton right away, but
Yeah.
tried to be a tough guy. I mean, everything about it was bad.
That's the Marvel quips of these thugs. I mean, Jesus.
The main bad guy, just like, I don't know, he was okay, but not at all.
Yeah.
That's my main thing. Casting was really bad, acting bad, writing bad.
Yeah.
But then we got to get to.
Well,
Yeah.
it's all bad, but I am very happy to say that Conor McGregor joins the short list of characters that have Joker energy. And if you don't know what I mean, included in that list, of course, is Wesley Snipes in Demolition Man and Brandon Lee in The Crow. That these are not Joker, but they very much have Joker energy. And Batman Joker, that is. Really, McGregor here is such a chaotic force on screen that scenes that don't have fires just have fires spring up in them behind him. It's really something. It's incredible. His weapon of choice is a golf club. He wears these hoochie daddy shorts the whole film, and he looks like a total clown. Like, it is unreal. I think this is where his inclusion definitely dips this into so bad it's good. And I would say I am truly and honestly excited to see what Conor McGregor is.
It's completely opposite take I thought you were going to take.
I
He
don't-
tanks the movie. Conor McGregor comes through halfway through. We already have an established bad guy. We're now introducing a new main bad guy.
Yep.
And it is the most absurd acting I've ever seen in my life.
Bad.
It's outrageous.
You're right. I'm telling you, I think he has a very successful acting career in front of him for how bad this was.
I don't know,
feel like
man.
he's
I don't
going
know.
to hit it in the right spot for a lot of people watching this movie. And,
you're already
so-
not enjoying the film, and then he comes in, and it takes you out of it completely.
I went from
absurd.
angry to laughing at the movie.
Yo, absolutely.
As soon
No
as
doubt.
McGregor came on screen,
No
and
doubt.
that's where I'm honestly saying. I mean, I think this is so bad it's good territory, folks. This one broke my brain in two. I'd love to comment more about the film, but we didn't get a single roundhouse kick, and I can't even begin to explain how much of a failure that is as a remake. We're going to go ahead and give Roadhouse a 27, and I'm going to go on a limb and call it Spig.
Okay, so bad it's good.
Yeah.
27% for Roadhouse. So I watched it twice.
Yeah.
Again, not because I liked it, but I needed to figure out how much. I knew I didn't like it. How much did I hate it? Did I actually kind of
Sure,
like it?
was it just bland?
Was it so bad it's good?
Yeah,
So
right.
let me watch it again.
Yep.
I'll say one thing about the fights. Again, I was so like, I don't know which way to go. I was like, do I like the fight scenes? Do I hate them? Like viscerally right away first
Yep.
couple times.
Yep.
I don't, because it's a kind of a different style of filming fights. Not the first time it's been done. I kind of enjoyed it visually. I enjoyed kind of buzzing around.
The
Nothing about it-
brightness of Florida.
Right. And just the quickness of the fights. The editing I didn't hate, but the more I'm going to watch it, the more it's going to get old. This is going to age really poorly. That CGI and how bad the fights are going to look. First time was at least something different to watch.
Sure.
Where everyone's trying to copy John Wick.
Very
This
true.
is going for a different angle of how they're shooting fight scenes.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, I'm not going to rate it. It's just... in some areas, it's like, I could see this has something going for it.
Right.
And then it shits the bed.
Yeah, it really does.
Conor McGregor, the way he walks,
Oh my god,
it is out of
it's
control.
so ridiculous.
Out of control.
And then he's just like punching people in the face, and then they continue talking to him.
Right.
Like, they have to put up with it.
Wait,
It was
he
it
eats
was
sandwiches?
so ridiculous, and that's why I mean, like, there is Joker energy in this performance. This
Yeah.
is Wesley Snipes' Demolition Man. This is Brandon Lee in The Crow.
I mean, yes,
This
Agent of
is-
Chaos
yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely. In addition to just very much a bad acting performance, was just like so. Like, they let him loose as McGregor's, obviously he's probably a different person in behind closed doors, but this
Right.
really is his persona
Yeah.
of why he's famous. Really it just took over like a parasite, this film.
It did.
Like,
It really did.
It became the McGregor show.
It really did.
And that's where I was like, okay, this is something else entirely. It's so good.
Okay, all right. So that's kind of our rapid fire, kind of, but that wraps up our streaming films.
Yeah, Roadhouse got a
For the
little
week.
long, but
So we're going to go into now in theaters, and I'm pretty sure you can catch all of these in theaters still. Like I said, Love Lies Bleeding, Problemista. They're rounding out. Might have to travel for them, or they're going to be in select theaters. What do you want to start with? I'll throw it to you.
let's do Immaculate.
Oh, good idea. Okay.
Let's get Sweeney out of the way.
Okay. So Immaculate, it's definitely in theaters now. It's kind of Neon's horror for early in the year.
Yep.
And I want to put this in. It's not. We're in March, so it's not. Or in April too. It's not Dumpuary. So I'm not. I wasn't expecting this to be a Mithrigan or something like that.
Sure.
But we'll see how it actually holds up. Immaculate, Sydney Sweeney playing a nun. What did we get the film set it up, and how'd you like it?
Yeah, well, Immaculate it was kind of, I don't know, it was on my radar because I like Neon stuff. They also, do a lot of stuff with the Cronenbergs. both
Sometimes
the
you like,
father
yeah.
and son. Yeah, right. I would say, unlike Millie Bobby Brown, I have been intentionally avoiding Sydney Sweeney's meteoric rise in 2024. Her hit role in the HBO show Euphoria landed her on the map, but honestly, she has been acting as a kid since 2009. I think my takeaway from her spike in popularity we have seen in the last few months is that a good agent makes a world of difference.
All right.
With roles in rom-coms, superhero movies, and now horror movies as well. Within the last 3 months alone, we see her positioned to be top of mind for producers and casting directors alike.
I didn't know she was that much. She was that.
Oh, yeah, she's everywhere.
Wow,
And
okay.
And, yeah. I saw this one with my mother, who referred to this as the SNL Titty Girl movie, which is more cruel than any of my notes this week. So good on Mama Daly. And honestly, with how raunchy 2024 has been so far, I legit didn't know what movie she was talking about as well. So it could be Driveway Dolls, could be Love Lies Bleeding. Ironically, I think, and not to be a stick in the mud, but I did want to check this out exactly because Sweeney was casted as a non-sexualized nun. The girls are buttoned up tight in this. So, except for a very few scenes, I hope to actually kind of gauge her performance if it was worth it all your time. In short, I would kind of say inconclusive. This movie, not too satisfying. This movie isn't quite the level of Blumhouse trash, which thankfully we have dodged entirely so far this year with like Imaginary and I don't know, I think it was like Night Swim or something like that came out in January.
Yep.
But is still pretty damn bland and isn't the greatest platform for any actor to be involved. I feel like, honestly, if we covered Madam Web, if we covered Anyone But You, might be my same notes as well, that I don't feel like Sweeney has had a fair shake to really give her, a standout role here. Folks, I feared this movie would fall in the Catholic cool subgenre we identified for 2023, but really was more of a bland horror. The problem lies in that hour and 29-minute some runtime, shockingly too short to develop some of the horror themes that were working better in the initial part of the movie. Also, a factor that I was shocked didn't shovel it out to streaming first, this being so short. I feel like this theatrical run confused me most of all in comparison to what didn't get and what did. Get a theatrical run.
I don't know. It's a horror, and horrors will surprise you. I mean, look at last year and the year before. Way too many horrors that we think were made, and at the same time, they did all right in the box office.
Yeah, true.
And cheaper to make,
and
too.
maybe that's the theater experience, too, like kind of, going with a date or something like that.
Right. I do hope that we take a switch. I hope we back off horror. And it looks like this year it is less than last year.
Oh, for sure.
And maybe do take a swing towards comedies or something like that.
Yeah, I'd be open to it. Sydney Sweeney plays Sister Cecilia, a new nun at a Catholic monastery assigned with taking care of aging nuns towards their final days, like a nursing home or like hospice for nuns. Our calm setting is mostly built in its horror around cryptic, demented old people and occasional red-hooded strangers from afar observing. Plenty of red flags go off, but it's only until our Sweeney gets pregnant out of nowhere do questions starts being asked around this immaculate conception. The lack of development I mentioned is actually directed of how the movie delivers its horror, delivers its scares. This setting had so much potential to disturb the audience and still hint at kind of a greater mystery with the cult-like aspects. Throw in a little Rosemary's Baby in there, and you have a stylish, scary movie.
Okay.
Instead, what do we get? We get jump scares. Constantly. Every scare is a jump scare. And so many that could have been something greater by just leaning off that spike in the, that sting in the soundtrack, and maybe just let us observe a creepy old woman in the corner.
Yeah.
And what is she babbling about? Or don't give a music sting to these disturbing kind of eyes wide shut cult members that are around the monastery and that you catch out of the corner of your eye. These moments would work not even just better, tremendously better, and actually be scary if they just were given moments to breathe, be a little slower, and not have these jump scare stings.
Right, let
soundtrack.
let that suspense build.
Yeah,
and just let the person visualizing. Those are the best horror movies.
Yeah,
and it almost seems like time and time again, those are what hit. Like that's what makes a good movie, but people still always go to the cheap jump scares. You know, but it's that weirdness. It's that just like what is around the corner, that thing that draws the people closer to the screen is what you want.
Exactly. And don't even get me started on how this could tie into making this Immaculate Conception disturbing in nature.
Yeah.
And it leans, all of these areas that I'm saying have kind of potential, they are kind of crumbs there. None of it is acted upon. None of it is developed upon. I would say, worst of all, because scares are structured this way, we see the storytelling just kind of give up trying to flesh out these scarier concepts like mental illness or manipulation in the church. Just kind of halfway through the movie, they just kind of stop showing up. And it's like, okay, I guess, all right. I guess it wasn't that scary. So, on the positive end, I would say if you lower your expectations a little bit on this and see it just more as kind of a by-the-books horror, I think the more cartoony elements could be a small highlight here. I would say this movie has excellent gore work, well earning its rated R rating 2 times over.
Okay.
And some great prosthetic work on some kills as well. So, this was a good, bloody rated R film. And from that perspective, plenty is done to show Sweeney can hang with other scream queens that we've seen as of late, such as Mia Goth and Anya Taylor-Joy. But with that said, we're going to go ahead and give Immaculate a 54. Far from
54.
Immaculate.
I love these scores. I'm loving these scores.
These are working scores. This is this is the working man's episode.
Yeah. Wow, yeah. I mean, it's not rare. It's pretty rare that we get an episode like this.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's just keep it going. Hopefully things get better. Okay. Let's jump into Problemista. Not on my radar at all. When you brought it up to me for the first time that you wanted to cover it, that's when I just did research. I was like, what is this film? I don't even know what it is. So Problemista, set it up. It seems like a small cast, again, kind of maybe a contained movie. And what is this movie?
Yeah.
And how'd you like it?
Well, Problemista is an A24 film, very much defined in that type of style. This is a huge breakout project for Julio Torres, who has been doing a lot of things for the last 10 years or so. A longtime writer for SNL from 2016 to 2021. A writer and actor for the quick hit cult comedy Los Espookies, which I hear amazing things about with Fred Armisen. And now the third ball in the juggling act comes with this film, where he is starring as the lead acting role, has the sole writing credit, and most of all is directing the whole damn thing. Tom, what is my favorite question to ask when it comes to these type of projects?
Does he have the juice? I mean,
does he have the juice? Is the juggling act there?
Can he keep the balls in the air?
Exactly. Is the juggling act going to be a problem? Or, should I say, is this going to be a problemista?
Okay.
I would really like ratings on all the jokes, Tom.
That was fine. I don't know.
Quick 1 to 5. I would say the good news is no. This successfully pulled off almost everything that it was going after and was a very impressive film. Most of all, as a comedy, it uses its surrealist spin to communicate a degree of social commentary, much like something we would see from the Afro-surrealism space building over the last few years. It's using comedy, surrealism, all to kind of get pointed towards a real point it's trying to make, which is great. Really well done. The film has 2 angles to its story. First is the journey of Alejandro, played by Torres, to chase his dreams in the most competitive place on earth and struggle in that, in getting his green card because of this choice. Finding work, his dreams to become kind of an unconventional toy designer are very lofty. Him choosing to go to New York rather than, anywhere else in the States is kind of an intentionally difficult choice that he has to confront in getting this work visa. Secondly, as far as the angle of this comedy, it is a Nightmare Boss-styled comedy at the wonderfully maniacal hands of Tilda Swinton's character, Elizabeth. I mean...
Almost unrecognizable.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it reminds me a little bit maybe like her and Snowpiercer, where she's equally as maniacal.
Sure, okay, yeah.
She's feeding people bugs.
Well,
but
it's in our future anyway.
Okay, I'm going to get him started.
Yeah.
Tilda Swinton is a true nightmare Karen come to life on screen. I mean, this is a hard performance to judge just because I feel like she did an excellent job, but the character kind of intentionally annoys you and makes your skin crawl because of how, like, oh my God, like, kill me now type of Karen environment.
Another Joker-esque, huh? Hey, total agent of chaos we have.
Maybe Harley Quinn. Yeah. But, I mean, it's really something else. She does just such an excellent job in this. Everything from her phone light being on at all times to the slapping, scrolling through pictures on the phone to, a touch of boomer ego to every sentence that comes out of her mouth. I mean, it is perfection. She really knocks it out of the park here. And again, hard perfection because in achieving perfection is the character is legitimately annoying. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that could very much lose an audience if you're just not into that or kind of want to experience that in the slightest. But it really is just she does an excellent job in this. But I have to urge, where this excels beyond just an annoying character or, again, a Nightmare Boss-style comedy that would be formulaic from, like, the 2010s, it's how the story views every character having an impact on this formative moment in Alejandro's life. And it's actually quite meaningful at the end. And I feel like in the many different themes and kind of moral goals the film tries to achieve, it actually is quite balanced in trying to kind of understand why this Karen nightmare beast called the Hydra in this film was how she is and how to understand and that there is still something that is positive that Alejandro can take from the scenario, which I thought was really excellent. What I love most of all, though, are these, like, surreal touches. It was really wonderful. The visual storytelling here doesn't always land, but it's always very funny and unique.
It's designed, just real quick to jump in, it's a confusing kind of premise, or why is it taking aspects, because this kid is inspiring to be a big toy designer, correct? Is the design or the visuals kind of play with that and trying to be toy-esque and everything? For sure.
Okay. Like, his ideas get played out on screen for the toys. And the only reason why he's with Tilda Swinton, this character, is because he's out of options for who to basically co-sign his paychecks for the work visa. Yeah. So that's what kind of lands him here. But yeah, these surreal elements are where it's at. This is where, like, this movie was just so unique and so great. Him looking for side jobs on Craigslist kind of personifies the website into, like, a trash genie. The work visa process is a nightmare maze made out of office cubes. Very cool. And like I mentioned, Swinton's character is spitefully nicknamed the Hydra, and there's a fantasy spin to some arguments with her, which is just great. Yeah, I'm just really impressed with this. All around a very sweet movie, though, through a handful of feel-good elements, it kind of balances out the bleak truth that the film is dealing with. And there's definitely some somber elements that kind of come up and are offset by these comedic surrealist vibes. Much like I felt with Past Lives, it has such a unique voice to its experience and subject. It comes out as truly one of a kind. I don't feel like you can take the voice of Julia Torres out of this because it's just so him, much like Celine Song was with Past Lives. Now, the question I have is the follow-up for these creators. Will they be anywhere as strong with how unique these ideas and how inspired these scripts are? That's another subject. But for now, I would say it is a positive confirmation that new voices equal new types of movies in the market. And this particular one was well worth your time. We're going to go ahead and give Problemista a 72.
Oh, 72. Good score, Vin.
Yep, absolutely.
And it's cool. I mean, this is kind of like a straight-up comedy, maybe with some drama in there and stuff.
Yeah.
Does it earn its rated R, by the way? Maybe just language?
In actually some of the sadder elements of it. Okay. But yeah.
So this is cool. It sounds like he's 2 for 2. We did not watch that first one that he wrote and directed.
Right? It's a show. It's a show.
Oh, it's a show. Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So maybe taking it back to what we were talking about comedies, we haven't found that crew. It's difficult to actually find those voices or that crew. Maybe we'll just be one-offs. Maybe this guy is going to be like Tati Watataki.
Oh.
The guy who did What We Do in the Shadows. Yes. The way he kind of took off doing this sexual show.
We need to get that down. We need to.
I don't know.
No.
What is his last name? Watatake.
No, it's you're messing my brain up. Taika Waititi.
Okay, there you go. That guy, he actually had a very big run of success. People think he's kind of fluttering out now.
Sure, if anything, that's an example of the voice of his writing style being drowned out in the market.
Right. But now this guy, SNL to successful TV to this, and this is actually doing well, not necessarily in theaters, but this came out in 2023 and just got released on a smaller time a smaller time festival, and it got enough hype where it actually did get a theater run.
Sure.
Which is cool. Yeah. And you didn't have to travel for this to see this, right? Like this is properly just like in theater. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Good. We'll keep out for
catch it while you can. If not, definitely worth it when it comes to streaming.
Could be a good streaming movie.
Absolutely.
And I kind of feel like that about our next one as well. Kind of wanted to see in theaters, but not the most upset. We'll see what happens, but I know it's going to be
This was earlier March as well.
Right.
So
this is Love Lies Bleeding. And I had mentioned this back in our Tom Daly episode. One of the ones I was kind of excited for, just really because it's a Kristen Stewart film, and I knew that Ed Harris is in it, who I love, and I saw the trailer, and he looks absolutely insane in it.
Insane.
But Love Lies Bleeding, again, I don't think it's just on people's radar like our next film is.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's definitely kind of down there in the box office. Set the film up a little bit. What are we dealing with? And how'd you like it?
Well, folks, this is a very strong turn for this episode so far, which honestly has been a little bit more mediocre than I thought, even just going through these. But, folks, this was an excellent watch. I had to catch earlier in the month, but honestly has not left the top of my mind for 2+ weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, this is one that maybe I don't have a huge amount to say, but the style speaks for itself so strongly with this. Love Lies Bleeding is a very chaotic film, not like Conor McGregor chaotic, just good chaotic. And normally where I would be annoyed by excessive twists and turns, here it blended into a wild ride that I really loved and where style matched as substance for this one. Director Rose Glass is returning to work with A24 for this one. And boy, oh boy, is this one hell of an A24 film.
You could just feel it, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, from the heavy neon to kind of semi-disturbing soundtrack and certainly kind of the spin between Kristen Stewart and her co-hosts or co-stars. Previously, the two collaborated, A24 and Rose Glass, that is, for Saint Maud, which I hear terrific things about and totally on my Halloween list now after seeing this film. Other than that, I'm fresh eyes on her work and genuinely impressed after watching this, putting her in the category of strong new directors that we have been collecting on the podcast so far. Rose Glass is a name to look out for after this film.
All right, very cool.
And definitely, specifically this film, a wonderful standout. The film is a story of lesbian romance and roid rage. But unlike our previous cover, Driveway Dolls, earlier this year, this is a full-on thriller with style oozing from every corner. We are set in the middle of 1980s Albuquerque, where the scenery is peppered with shady gun ranges, pumping iron-style gyms, and a shit ton of endless desert.
I like the setting.
I
like it bringing it back to the 1980s.
Yes, absolutely. And not nauseous 80s. The
Albuquerque 80s.
Yeah, right, exactly. Maybe not the 80s at all because it's Albuquerque. Maybe the 70s. But Kristen Stewart works at one of these, like kind of chalk and iron gyms and seemingly haunted by her lack of romantic prospects as a lesbian in Albuquerque. When, what do you know, her dream bodybuilding girl walks in off the street and spirals her life out of control. The film has an aesthetic of being sweaty and a little gross. Initially, I was worried this would fall into those washed out 80s nostalgia, done to death type of films already, type of projects already. But it completely avoids that. I cannot tell you how the 80s, I mean, giving praise like that for like a time period, sure, you would have that with the ones where it's packed with an 80s soundtrack,
Right,
or remember this type of toy, or, yada yada. Here, it's really more of a reason to amp up the stakes of the setting and amp up the stakes of the thriller. That counts for the hardcore bodybuilding culture that is the backdrop of the story, kind of maybe a scary distribution with roids. You don't really know what you're getting, what test. Also, the elements that make the scene of this bodybuilding, a little shady as well. A little bit like, there's not many eyes on this, and it just, I can't tell you how much that does wonders to kind of create a thriller in modern day, but still like kind of feeling almost abandoned a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, this is giving me very big vibes. Well, I think it helps with the characters as well. You can have kind of unique characters just because we're 40 years ago.
Right.
And in a small town like Albuquerque, no cell phones make a big difference. The constant communication or connectivity is a big thing. And this kind of is bringing me back to
No Country.
No Country.
Yeah.
And it's funny because something tells me you could almost call this Drive Away Dolls a little bit. And maybe could be directed. You would think maybe this was the one directed by the Coen brothers.
Maybe if you got both Coens and they would make this.
Right.
Instead of the hokey mess that we got with Drive Away Dolls.
But it's a good point. Just because we're in the 80s doesn't mean we need to have overwhelming synth or just the electronic drums or that constant noise.
Yes.
Or with the neon, like there's
or callbacks, constant callbacks.
Right. Or like city 80s with everyone with 2 cans of hairspray. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's something it's very specific small town Western 1980s of just, I think it's just setting the right scene.
Yeah.
Is what it feels like.
It's as much as the cigarette brown of the 70s spilling over into the 80s that it is actual proper neon 80s,
right. It's what actually kind of got me interested in this film. There was something in the trailer that was really like, this might have legs.
Absolutely.
And part of it was the fact that we're not in modern day.
Yeah.
It would the movie would be totally different, and I can only imagine worse.
I mean, it'd be tough to say. I think a lot of it comes from its serious tone as well. This is a very much serious romance. It's hot and heavy.
It always is with Kristen Stewart.
Right. We'll be on the other side of the fence with that one. Opposite sides. I do not like Kristen Stewart. But I feel like here she hits such a sweet spot for, I don't know, between her kind of, rough haircut and,
mullet-esque.
Mullet-esque, self-cut in the mirror to just like the environment again, kind of being this almost gross, sweaty, hardcore gym. Yeah. Real quick on some of that soundtrack note that you were saying, I mean, this soundtrack is something that intentionally avoids those typical needle drops that you get with 80s time periods, and puts more of an emphasis on a mix of dreamy and definitely foreboding elements to the score that complement both sides of the romance and the thriller. Something that A24 is very good at when it comes to kind of finding these projects and cultivating, what is on brand for them. Mm-hmm. I was very pleased to discover this great soundtrack was done by Clint Mansell, who we covered a bunch of times on the podcast, but most notably our highlight in our Darren Aronofsky episode.
Yeah.
So Mansell really kills it here. And again, my biggest praise is that it could have all this follow through for style over and substance through that style, but it would be lost if there was too many needle drops just saying, "Oh yeah, you remember the 80s," you know, or have kind of like jock jams in the gym or something like that. Instead, it's always this like foreboding, kind of dreamy, starry romance.
A24.
Yeah, right, exactly. Let's talk about the acting because I would say there's some good and bad. Kristen Stewart. I would say when it comes to her, I just still, I don't know. I
get it.
I got to look you in the eyes, Tom.
I don't think she's a great actress. I love her. I can't. You know what I mean? I get it. I just will always be in her corner.
Okay, fair enough.
I think the highlight for you of her career so far is probably Spencer.
Bingo.
Yeah.
And I would say, much like I praise in that film, I feel like she has an ability to fill a type of role that maybe outweighs some of the spotting acting. Mm-hmm. The spotting acting, I feel, it really just reminds me of Twilight. Not that she's come a long way. I'm not trying to hang.
She's like a big actress.
Right.
She gets parts. Yeah.
Perfect example, Robin Pattinson. You grow out of that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to romance, it's how she runs the romance. It sounds like Twilight dialogue sometimes coming out of her. But I would say her ability to be just so perfect for this role, like Spencer, where there is, it sells you on it just by the visuals alone. I feel like that kind of outweighs some of my criticisms.
It does some pulling. It does some of the legwork.
Exactly. Katie O'Brien.
Speaking of legwork.
Yeah. Katie O'Brien, on the other hand, is flat out great in this. She has a peppered TV series in the past decade or so, but wow, was this just a role she was made for?
Yeah, we should say, Katie, I don't think she's definitely not a household name.
No.
I didn't know her until this.
She was in the bad season of Mandalorian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so not great.
But she plays the female bodybuilder that Kristen Stewart falls for.
Yep.
And apparently in her real life, has done like bodybuilding and fitness stuff. I don't know if it was gymnastics as well as like a young age.
Okay.
Some type of sport though that she was in, where she was in the gym, and then she, I believe, like I said, just got into bodybuilding at some point or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's in her ballpark, and you can see from her physicality.
Oh my God, she's electric on screen.
Yeah.
In addition to that physicality, she perfectly captures the mood of the film, which has these kind of manic depressive ups and downs, and she deserves so much credit for both sides of that. In addition, again, probably the third side being a legit jacked figure, and just if that wasn't there, I can't tell you how much this film would crumble, because she needs to be this bodybuilder.
Right,
She needs to embody this this scene during the early 80s. This pumping iron, emerging of competitive bodybuilding and whatnot. And she's just so great in this. I would say completely stole the show if it wasn't for Ed Harris. Dave Franco, real quick, is pretty awful in this, but designed to be an asshole. So once again, like the Stewart notes, kind of just fit. So I didn't really have a huge problem with it.
Definitely not a big fan of him. Yeah,
right. Was the right piece for the puzzle.
Right douche.
Exactly. But the cherry on top absolutely goes to Ed Harris. I mean, as one hell of a terrifying villain. And where a lot of my praise towards style is found. I can't spoil it too much, because really the heart of the film...
Yeah, you haven't talked about the film.
Oh no, because you need to watch this one. Yeah, I can't spoil it too much, because a lot of it is unraveling his character. There's the romance, there's kind of the scene and the atmosphere, but then the real story is about what the hell's going on with Ed Harris. What the hell's going on with this creepy dude? Unraveling that character is just part of what made this so good. So believe me, trust me. If you enjoy his acting in anywhere else, this is one to watch.
Love Ed Harris.
Absolutely. And again, even if I don't know, even if there's any critique floating around online around his character or performance or like that, his role is where I will die on the hill of that, saying that this style does have substance, that there is a matching going on here once you puzzle everything together. Folks, like we've been saying, this is probably knocked out by theaters. Well, knocked out today by the time you're listening.
Yeah, it is in some. I don't want it is in some still.
Sure. I can't stress enough, give it some time when you see it on streaming. This is a sexy, violent crime thriller with style for days. By the end, it does dip into some slight surreal areas, and honestly gave me some Cronenberg vibes with how dark and twisted the experience is. But I really loved it, and without a doubt, will be a rewatch for later in the year. We're going to go ahead and give Love Lies Bleeding an 80 on the dot.
Wow, 80? Wow.
Yeah. Excellent movie.
I love this. I mean, that's fantastic. And I'm glad that you saw a movie this week that you were pretty excited about.
2 weeks ago.
Love Lies Bleeding, 80%. It really surprises me. When I first saw this came up, like I said, 4 months ago, I just thought it was going to be low budget.
Sure.
And again, what are we going to really get with this?
I'm with you.
That's awesome that it actually... Style for days, but style that matters or actually helps the story.
Yep.
Huge.
Oh,
You know
absolutely.
what I mean? Or else you just get Conor McGregor trying to do something that is just falling flat completely.
With a golf club.
Or because, especially because this is a bit of a crime fight or action.
Yeah.
You're getting just so flooded with that for like the past 10 years, 15 years. The constant trying to reinvent the action film or what action is, you get so many misses along the way.
Sure,
You know what I mean? Or stuff that you're not hot on, at least.
Yeah.
So for this to be an 80, I can't wait to see it. Like you said, you didn't really want to talk about the story too much.
Yeah.
You just let it unravel on you.
Absolutely. And a lot of it is in just romance, you know, I mean,
Right,
which
right.
is only so much can be said, you know, as far as that. I feel it was just like, yeah, this one, I mean, it's still kind of in my head a little bit after so many weeks of watching movies. And,
That's a lot of movies.
good movies, too. It's not like we're watching like throwaway weeks in March, you know, Dune and No Country.
Right, yeah.
There was something to Love Lies Bleeding that really was just always top of
Damn,
mind.
that's freaking awesome. Okay, 80% Love Lies Bleeding.
Yep.
And if you can't catch it in theaters, it's probably going to be a great streaming watch.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully it comes out soon. Hope that we don't have to wait for it too much.
And probably this would be one of the first probably to come to HBO Max or just Max because of the A24
deal.
Yep.
Yes, I forget when that comes in, when that actually takes effect.
Right.
But that's excellent because now we know it's actually going to be on Max.
Yeah,
There's
true.
not a question where it's going to land up.
Sure.
Excellent. Very good. 80%, Finn. All right, folks, we just want to remind everybody here that the Daily Ratings is completely producer supported. So in 2024, low when it comes to the old producers, almost non-existent. But, just like in Hollywood, when you financially support a project, you become a producer of that thing. That's how we're doing it on the Daily Ratings here. So Vin and I, we spend hours a week putting this together. Vin watching films and writing up his reviews. Me doing stuff with the website and whatever. Just hours.
Socials,
Yeah.
which is more time consuming than I think either of us want.
But hours a week, kind of, that's our value that we're putting into this. Our hours of, just dedication doing this every single week. And are you finding it valuable? So are you listening to the podcast? Are you using the website and enjoying it? That's value in your pocket. Can you give us value back in our pocket? And that's why it's called the value for value model. So you're not going to get any advertising here on the podcast or on the website. It's not going to be a payment tier structure for you to pay more money to get more content. And we're not going to have any subscriptions. The idea is it's all just there for you. Vin and I just put it out. And if you find it valuable, you send monetary donations our way. You go to thedailyratings.com, head to the donations tab, and it's whatever amount of value you want. So no matter how big of a donation, big or small, you can send it in. We do have some set fun donations, like buy Vin a movie ticket, become a Godfather, join the Gump Club, some of that fun stuff. Or, like I said, you can kind of just peg whatever number you're feeling, whatever, finances are different every single week for every different person.
Certainly.
So you can kind of just do whatever you want. And when you send in a donation, you can send in a donation note. You can send us questions, comments, critiques, anything you have to say or ask us. Go ahead and write it in a note when you send in that donation. We're going to address it right here. This is the producer segment to say thanks to all you. If you just want to be anonymous, by the way, go ahead and say in your note, hey, I want to be anonymous, and we won't use your name. Like I said, it's a value for value model. Become a producer of the Daily Ratings. Head to the donations tab at thedailyratings.com. A quick reminder for everybody, too, next week is Tom's birthday movies. So if you want to follow or watch along, basically we are covering, I'll go down the list one more time. We are
Psychotic list.
I don't think so at all. We're covering 2018's They Shall Not Grow Old. That's Peter Jackson's World War I documentary. We're doing 2006's Blood Diamond with Leo. 1993's The Fugitive with Tommy Lee Jones, Harrison Ford. Once again, Tommy Lee Jones just trying to chase a criminal, just like we had the other week. We're going to do an aging Paul Newman down on his luck, trying to get himself back in 1982's The Verdict. Great courtroom drama. And we're doing one of the best-known courtroom dramas, or one of the most high-regarded courtroom drama. It's 1959's Anatomy of a Murder. And that's with Jimmy Stewart. And George C. Scott is a supporting actor. And Duke Ellington, like I said, does the music as well, as we brought up last week. Yeah. So that's the birthday weekend next week if you want to watch along. But for now, Vin, I think we'll go to our last film here, the one that's in theaters, the one that had a great weekend at the box office.
Oh, right.
I would lose so many bets when it comes to judging the box office.
Oh, I know.
It's an unbelievable gamble.
It is why we are not rich in Hollywood.
Well, half a dozen other reasons.
You're right.
But let's just get into it. I watched it and was happy to go and watch it. It was Godzilla X Kong. Right? Not Godzilla.
Yes. Godzilla X Kong, New Empire.
The New Empire, yes. We brought it up the other week. We have our top two movies at the box office. both have Empire in it.
Yeah, it's
Ridiculous.
terrible.
Ridiculous.
It's terrible.
Godzilla x Kong, the new Empire.
Yeah.
Let's get into it, Vin. How do we like it? How do we like Return to this franchise?
Well, this week could have easily been covering all the MonsterVerse movies, which would be Godzilla 2014, King of Monsters, Skull Island,
Skull
your
Island.
favorite. I mean, that's really the lost opportunity this week, is not covering getting your final thoughts on Skull Island.
Hopefully you watch it this year, and I can give my
Next
thoughts.
birthday.
Yeah.
Next birthday. and I think my thoughts before seeing this was it kind of dipped into delicious garbage territory while still definitely being the tacky neon disaster porn the first Godzilla vs. Kong was. We, of course, covered that on one of the earliest episodes of the podcast, so feel free to go check that out.
It is like the first episode. Just be warned.
Yeah.
We're not as polished.
Right, especially for those first 10, we'll say. But my thoughts after seeing this, I kind of wish it had even more fun and went even crazier with its sci-fi design. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
Yeah, I feel like it kind of held the punch a little bit, held the kaiju. Certainly, this is wearing its anime influences on its sleeve with the X in the title and the creatures having power upgrades. Very cartoony, very fun. And they even made Kong, even more emotive and cartoonish. There is a surprising amount of fan service in creating wild arenas for them to have fights in. But all of it just kind of doesn't go as far as I would like it in the ways that almost the prior movie from 2021, Godzilla vs. Kong, kind of went crazy with. I mean, I didn't expect half the things in that film. It wasn't great, but
It took like the whole movie for those two to get together. Kong and Godzilla.
Got to rewatch it.
Okay, all right.
I remember actually watching that with you, and just I looked over you, and you at one point we were at our buddy Christian's house, and you were just like so miserable.
Isn't Kong like for half the film like knocked out and floating on a barge?
That's true. Not half, but a little bit. They got to get him there. Yeah, but I would say there's a big personal problem I have with these movies. Every time a new movie like this comes out, whether it's Transformers or certainly this MonsterVerse stuff, I have a strong feeling to cover Pacific Rim just to illustrate my criticisms of the action, specifically the action side by side. If you're going to have giant monsters feel giant, that needs to come with much slower action. We need to feel the weight of these CGI nothings on screen.
Yeah, okay.
And as it was the case with Godzilla vs. Kong in 2021, and this one, there's a lot of destruction porn. They're sending them through buildings and whatnot.
My least favorite, yep.
Right, but in that you're losing the weight of that comes, and there was just such a highlight of Pacific Rim. I'll even dial it back. I don't think Pacific Rim's really like that great of a movie.
Right, you're not saying it's like in the 80s.
Right, exactly. It's still a monster movie, but I feel like there's something that was fundamentally understood even in that anime influences that big monster equals the weight needs to be felt, especially when it's not like a man in suit or something like that, going back to our Godzilla special. I would say, while the weight of the action is still not quite there with this, it does have a little bit of a shift in the right direction of crafting a world that has developed alongside kaijus and giant monsters, which I think is a kind of a fun direction of the series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do I wish they took it further? Absolutely. But definitely side by side with what they're trying to push. Directing here, once again, is Adam Wingard, most likely getting his own trilogy after this one being so successful in the box office.
So he did the Godzilla vs. Kong, the first one.
Yes.
And then this is the second one.
Yeah,
okay.
bingo. So presumably that will be its own like mini trilogy within this MonsterVerse.
Yeah.
This movie also is jammed-packed with name drops around Monarch, which in addition to showing the human angle to governing these monsters, which I thought was a good thing, it is built-in advertising for the Apple Plus show, which I'm sure has a lot of tie-in elements to this.
Some.
Yeah,
I started the show, didn't finish episode.
Yeah.
Didn't
finish a single episode?
Didn't finish season 1.
Okay.
And I hear it gets better halfway through.
Okay.
But it is, it's pretty, I mentioned on the podcast before, it's poopy. It's pretty
It's
poopy. And even with, what's his face can only do so much. Who's the guy? I mean, come on. Yeah, we have to know. It's who's married to Goldie Hawn? I can't believe I know Goldie Hawn is married to her. He's also in the Santa Claus movies, but the new Santa Claus movies, not the Tim Allen ones.
Kurt Russell?
Yes, Kurt Russell. So Kurt Russell's in it.
Married to Goldie Hawn.
But yes, but he only holds it so much. And then one of the main guys actually is his son in it, his real life son.
Okay. That's eerily close to the Fast and Furious plot as well. That he's a character in the Fast and Furious movies, and then his son takes over.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, regardless, I don't like the Apple show. I do hear it gets a little bit better, but it's not good enough for me to even sit down and keep it going. I wasn't getting a lot of callbacks, though. Monarch was being mentioned.
Yeah.
But other than that,
because they're all the facilities. They're like basically these monster ranches.
Government organization to keep this on track.
Yep.
But no, I'm kind of glad that they kept it within the movie realm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good. For me, I just feel like every time they were mentioning it, I was like, is that something, But in this movie, the Hollow Earth and the surface world are aligned together, with Kong and Godzilla being the protectors of both, respectively. Godzilla gets a little shafted in this, not to show a bias, but relegated to check-ins just to show him gaining power. I'll say, as a positive, visually, they have some fun with alternate Godzilla forms, which reminded me of the Heisei era films. So a little fun there. But Kong, much like the previous film, is the real focus, as exploring the Hollow Earth regions leads him to finding secret ancestors to his kind and a turf war on who is the mightiest. That's basically it. Of course, the human plot in this is pulling teeth and is really mind-boggling of how many films, and especially post-Godzilla -1, where the human plot was a joy to have paired with Godzilla.
Rare for Godzilla to have
like
people
actually
you care about.
Exactly. It just feels like, wow, they just haven't learned anything. The human plot in this was, I felt, total distraction, and honestly just an exposition shovel to give us,
They're exposition machines.
yeah.
And it gets worse throughout the film.
Yeah.
They get more useless, and whenever there's people on screen, it's only to shovel information in your face.
Exactly.
That one we could pick up on, or two we don't even need to know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's really it's almost shameful.
Yeah.
I didn't like the characters in the beginning. I didn't like the actors and stuff. I didn't mean the main actress.
What's her face from Night House?
Rebecca Hall.
Yes.
I was getting vibes where I wish that she would replace. Man, I'm bad with names today. Who's in the Devil Wears Prada?
Anne Hathaway.
Yes, I wish she would replace Anne Hathaway in all upcoming projects.
I don't know if Anne Hathaway would ever go down to this, but
so I like her as a person and actress.
Yeah.
But for the most part, the characters sucked in the beginning, and they continued to get worse and worse as time went on.
Yeah,
and their role in the film became less and less.
Exactly, exposition machines. Perfect way to describe it, Tom. Because even in previous films, definitely the Godzilla versus Kong, but also what my memory serves of the other Godzilla films, there's at least kind of an effort done to place these characters in the outskirts of the battle so they can be witnessing it. Here, they deliver the exposition. They're not even present for the battle, it feels like.
A lot of it, that's for sure. Yeah.
So it's like, why at all do we have this? Especially when there's so much non-verbal storytelling done through like monsters making grunts and shit like that.
Yeah.
I feel like it could have survived a lot on its own like that.
One thing, it was way more action than I thought we were going to get.
Oh, really?
Because
Okay.
I was disappointed with Kong Skull Island, and I didn't like the first Godzilla Kong. I didn't think there was enough action and too many humans.
Yep.
With this one, they start off pretty hot, and I feel like we actually get a lot of action with the creatures. To the point where after that, I was just like, wow, could we get away with just the animal grunts? Can we get enough where it's almost zero humans next time?
I would love it. I would love it.
Agreed. And that way I thought this was a step up from last film to me.
Yeah.
But it gets to the point, because humans are used even less, they really just pile on the dialogue for them, especially at the end. Oh, my word.
I know. It was something else. I mean, as soon as she started reading the stone tablets in the room, and it was just like, oh, my God.
I know.
I would say, I don't know if I disagree with not enough fights. I feel like this talked a big game, though. I guess I expected the Godzilla Kong team up to come sooner, and then there to be more fight scenes around the team.
Well, to your point, they're very much separated,
Yeah.
and Godzilla totally gets the shaft. This is a Kong-centric story, and I don't know why they're not sharing more of that, because Godzilla was the one who had his first film.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? When they
Yeah.
did this reboot with Bryan Cranston in 14, I think.
Yeah.
Right? So it is weird how little utilized he is, and I don't understand that, because even by now, Godzilla is a more, I would say, beloved creature in America than King Kong, even though Kong was born in the States a little bit, especially on film.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the sharedness is not there. That's for sure.
And I mean, while there's some cool nods, like I said, to old Godzilla films with some of what they do with the augmentations to the monsters, we'll call it.
Yeah.
It just, I don't know. I felt like this talked a bigger game of teaming these two up, the X being, instead of versus. So if that, if the name means anything, obviously a very garbage name, but and this is where I mean with taking concepts further. The Hollow Earth setting is really just an excuse to do whatever they want, especially teleportation around the globe. I mean, maybe that's better than stapling Kong to a ship and having him sedated for, so maybe they can just teleport wherever they want.
I kind of liked when we were in the Inner Earth or whatever the hell it's called.
I like the Hollow Earth. I just don't like the teleport anywhere you want on the planet Hollow Earth. You know what I mean? I feel like it's
What do you mean teleport anywhere you want?
You can. They have the teleports everywhere. They have these tunnels that Kong just crawls out of whenever he wants.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right.
And above all, the human tech that is thrown in, nothing is used as really in a creative way in combination with these creatures. Unlike some of the sci-fi set pieces of the last film, I just feel like I just wish they just went a little bit more crazy. I want them to go ham with this one, especially when we pushed further into kind of expanding what this film could be in the last one. I feel like it was more of a 0.5 than a sequel,
Wow. Okay, that surprises me a little bit.
Yeah.
My hopes were so low for this, and I
You came out pleasantly surprised.
Yes, surprised. I don't know about pleasantly surprised. I thought the CGI was going to be worse than it was. It was better than I thought, and I thought we were going to get less action. And I thought I was going to be fighting the urge to be walking out, and I didn't. I was just like, all right. It was more fighting than I thought. CGI was better.
Yeah.
But you're right. You can't not walk away and say, I wish there was more, because even I had it.
Yeah. Especially when the final fight comes, the slight spoilers that there are, no spoilers, but it felt like such a rehash of Hong Kong in the last film.
Right,
I think they're in Rio de Janeiro. Just the same type of moves of the creature, the same tackle into a building type of moves. I mean, it's just really like same old. And I guess that's what you get when you're pitting a lizard against a monkey, but just like it wasn't there. I wanted more creativity to it.
Right.
And clearly they had a clean slate to be as creative as they wanted with this, because they go in a lot of campy and cartoony areas.
Right, they do, and we're all over the place.
Absolutely.
I got to come clean a little bit.
Uh-oh.
So, like, we hit Rio de Janeiro.
You fell asleep.
10 minutes of the film. I was dozing off hard at the climax and the biggest fight in the film, I have to say.
Classic T.
I was going in and out.
Classic T.
But even with missing some of that, I thought there was more action than I thought throughout the film. So I do have to come clean a little bit, but
You're like, pretty snappy film, really flew by.
No, it was not that bad, I promise.
Yeah, I mean, I think that honestly speaks to more of like kind of a practical experience. I really have to like pay attention to films no matter what, even if I hate them. Like Lightyear is a perfect example I always go to. Just like if I could walk out of that, I would. Or would have.
And there's something to be said about. My biggest issue is the tens to hundreds of thousands of human lives being murdered and no one caring. This film in particular, like, we are on screen with dead bodies that were recently killed. No remorse, nothing. We see close-up deaths on screen of a character or two, and, like, jokes are made. There is zero anything. I mean, it takes the heart out of it, and I didn't see Godzilla -1 yet, but for everything I hear about this, it's, wow, what makes it such a good film partially is is the realness of the people. You know what I mean? The feeling, the real feeling you can get from the people or what's going on, the stakes that are on screen. And with this, just the constant knocking down. Like, again, we're in Egypt and we're killing hundreds of thousands. We're in Rio de Janeiro and we're killing hundreds of thousands. It's just, it so doesn't matter, which I think is why I kind of like the film, because we spend so much time in the middle
of nowhere. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where we
That's
don't
a very
have
good
cities.
Point.
So even though it's not much Godzilla going on and we're getting a lot of apeage, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Ape fighting. It was
Ape escape.
I liked being in the world. I like being in the non-human world, because the best part of these movies is the animals fighting.
And gets rid of this bugaboo of
Huge
kind of
bugaboo.
the realism of it, or the collateral damage.
Yeah, you know? Huge bugaboo. Yep.
Yeah. I agree. I think that's a very valid point. It's something that I guess I'm kind of, especially after like the 15, Godzilla films.
Right, yeah.
I guess I'm kind of numb to it, but I think that's a valid point, especially in that why the disaster porn doesn't work for you.
Yes.
And probably for a lot
Absolutely
of people.
does not work.
So,
yeah.
Boy, do they love their green blood in this. And hey, what do you know? Safe for the Chinese market too. I would honestly pay for a gore edition of this film. It got me thinking that certainly has to be an AI service out there, just changing anything green to red in post editing. I really like, especially the first scene. Kong like rips a creature in half in like an intimidation thing. It was just like, I don't know. It felt so flat when it was not like gore, but still they wanted it to be gore. You know what I mean? I don't know. So, a minor point.
I'm glad you brought up the Chinese market.
Okay.
Okay. So if I could touch on this.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So this film is absolutely trying to hit home with the Chinese market to the point where it's like, I think they want it to be half an American, half a Chinese film.
Oh, sure. Like a Moonfall or something like that.
Right. We get into... Interesting choice on Moonfall.
Yeah,
the film, the one you gave a 14%.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. That's
well, I could even say with that terrible Matt Damon one, the Martian film.
Right.
But this took it in a different kind of way. So we go to the Middle Earth. What is it called?
Hollow Earth.
We go to Hollow Earth.
This is the Lord of the Rings brain. Tolkien rot.
We go to Middle Earth and. We are, we go, we have the whole Hollow Earth tribe and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, they did something somewhat unique with Kong Skull Island, where you had that, prehistoric tribe that hasn't been, not prehistoric, but the tribe that hasn't been contacted
to Kong
yet.
As well.
Right.
It's always the tribe that worships him.
And here, it's just like, we're kind of just in an Asian country, which is fine. And I didn't think of anything in the beginning. I just kind of thought it was boring. It's just like, okay, it's just kind of like an Asian tribe, where I thought we're trying to be otherworldly. We're in the center of the earth. It's supposed to go back ages and ages and ages.
Sure.
I just thought it was lazy at first. And I kept on thinking, I was like, wow, this would have been cool. Do you remember the very beginning of the second Star Trek movie?
Okay.
Where they're trying to save that prehistoric. I keep on saying prehistoric.
Oh, you mean the JJ ones?
Yes, the JJ.
Yeah.
Where they're trying to save the tribe from the volcano.
Yep.
And very.
It's a prime directive type of thing.
Right. Very easy. What they did, because it's just makeup, but very visually striking.
Yeah,
remember how those guys
the
looked?
Reds of the foliage.
They looked I don't know. They like ash on them, dried ash, and the way they blink was different. And I was like, that would have been cool to do this. So again, I wasn't thinking about it much, but it wasn't until the light bulb went on. Boy, are we just really trying to tap another market and be friendly with another market.
Yep.
When we're in Egypt, do you know what I'm going to say?
What?
When we're in Egypt, and once again, tens of thousands of Egyptians are just dying.
Yeah.
And a bunch of...
That one's particularly gratuitous as well.
Yes, we're crashing through buildings, and we're in Egypt. We're in sand-colored buildings being crashed.
Yeah.
And boy, what do we see but a glowing white Oppo sign?
I don't know.
What is Oppo? Right. You don't know what Oppo is?
Yeah, no, I don't.
Exactly the right question you should be asking. What is Oppo? What is an Oppo store? Why, in this American-made film,
are we getting Oppo?
Based on the most famous, popular Japanese property, are we getting product placement for a second-tier Chinese phone maker?
Why so it's like a Huawei or something.
Well, okay. If I were to say the words to you, Vin, Huawei, OnePlus,
sure,
we know what we're dealing with.
Right.
They're Chinese phones.
Yeah.
If I say the name
Oppo,
if I say the name Xiaomi, Redmi, Oppo, Doogee, do you know what we're in? No, I rest my case. Why are we being shoveled out for the Oppo? It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. So much of this film is to just tap into this other market.
Yeah. I think I'm sharpening your eyes on catching some advertising everything over the course of the podcast.
It was a bright white sign in all these sand buildings. I'm like, you're putting an Oppo store in front of us? This is ridiculous.
Yeah. Meanwhile, let's destroy another historical landmark.
Oh, seriously. Oh, ridiculous. Anyway.
Yeah.
But that's so Chinese marketing, big time.
Yeah. And granted, it's how these gluttonous CGI films, they make their money back. They need more than just the American market, which is already going to be critical of them.
Yeah. It's doing great. Like I said, great weekend.
Yeah.
Great weekend.
Yeah, great weekend. That's what I'm going to say. Great weekend. How's your week of movies been? Great weekend. Live action camera work has a slight similar effect to Rebel Moon, where the focus is just out of whack. Did you pick up some of this?
All around the edges.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, big time.
And
immediately.
Folks, if this is a trend emerging, I cannot tell you how much I hate it. The only thing, I was trying to kind of come out this a little bit more, I don't know.
Monster movie. Fun.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the juice for the squeeze of why they would use something like this is maybe to make CGI environments look a little bit better. I'll pull on Jurassic Park, kind of the concept of dark, rainy, foggy makes better looking effects.
Yes.
That's the only way I can think of it. And again, it's not as severe as what Snyder did with Rebel Moon, where it's like, I can't see anything in the background. Mm-hmm. But it's still some of it. And I don't like the trend at all. I think it's bad.
And and just to highlight what you're talking about, really, it's around the edges I was noticing on the screen, but it's blurred out.
Yeah.
There's a lot of blurriness around, and I don't know, maybe because I just saw it in Dolby Cinema, that it was something with the projector or something, the way it was shot, and
the edges,
format or something like that. But you noticed it too, where it's just a lot of blurring out around the edges. Yeah.
I don't know if they think it looks slick or whatnot. I feel like it's particularly detrimental when paired with science fiction fantasy things, because what is the world building? Eye candy. You know what I mean? You want to see design. You want to see creativity on display. But I don't know. It's bad. I would say especially after the high of Godzilla -1. I thought this might come out a bit better. If I had a crack at the franchise, make the human element connected to finding more about our two lead monsters rather than an off-screen threat that is just exposition for the audience. If you have to have these human elements into it, if you want to have the remaining stars that are willing to sign on for the sequel still pop up and still be a part of it, make this exposition for the monsters we care about, maybe. You know what I mean? Give us more developments in the title creatures rather than, these villains that they didn't need the exposition because they're just like grunting at each other. Like, I don't need to know the stakes of the baboon, man,
I would almost actually take it in another direction.
Okay.
How about you have them not knowing everything and telling us? How about we have them learn along the way? Very much going back to the 1997 Godzilla with Matthew Broderick.
Whoa, easy. All right, you might have lost me here.
No, but the point is you give us people that don't really know, and they're like learning along the way. So
about main monsters, not the enemy monsters.
Exactly, or with any of it. So basically we have people that are clueless and picking up clues, and we're learning along the way with them. If you leave out all information with them, then you can't get into expedition dumps.
Yeah.
Because we're learning together. Let the audience figure stuff out.
Absolutely.
Don't just spoon feed us.
And I think the middle ground here is just the problem is the human element.
Entirely. Yeah, true. We could just get rid of them completely.
Right. That's the solution right there. Just cut it out entirely. But I feel like something needs to be done to shake up the formula a little bit. And maybe it's just a matter of a repositioning or retargeting of what their purpose is. It also doesn't help that Wingard and team have completely run out of fan favorite kaiju to call back to, really scraping the barrel on, even leftover Godzilla monsters or possibly even from Kong matchups, and now we're just left with this big baboon riding a dinosaur. I mean, like, it's just so lame.
Kind of liked it.
Yeah.
Kind of liked it. I thought you were gonna love it.
As soon as they showed the baboon guy, I thought of Christopher Walken in the Jungle Book remake.
Nice.
But with that said, we're going to go ahead and give Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire a 41.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where I really thought about it. and especially in reflecting on 2021, reflecting on the MonsterVerse, reflecting on other Godzilla films, it's really where it gauges it for me. I feel like this was kind of a more of an obligation to keep up with the MonsterVerse than something I would really recommend seeing and saying, oh yeah, you liked the first one when they went at it. This is more of the good of that, you know?
Right. So, what did you give the original one?
I think a 47.
Or not the original, but you gave it a 47.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're really...
Yeah.
Yeah, we're kind of in the same ballpark then.
And I don't know where...
Which I'm not disagreeing with, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm also not rating this one.
Oh, come on. Give me something.
I got nothing to say about it. Everything I needed to say, I said already.
You like the monkeys.
I did. I mean, again, yes, the positive thing is that we're away from at least real world and we're in middle world.
We got to do a Nat Geo special for you one of these days. You know,
I don't know what that means.
He loves all this wilderness stuff.
All right, what do you? I cut you off. What were you saying?
Oh, there's been it's been a little bit of positive revival of that 2014 Godzilla that people are saying, oh wow, they did everything right by like not showing the monster for a little bit and the human plot kind of mattering a little bit more. And I guess I just would be curious to revisit that. I don't know how many of the old MonsterVerse movies are actually scored on the site. But
none of them are, except for Godzilla '98. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Gave her 39, by the way.
Yeah. Broderick, not good.
Was Millie Bobby Brown in 2014, or she was in 20?
She was in King of Monsters, and then Godzilla vs. Kong. Not in this one.
Oh, she was in Godzilla vs. Kong.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because she was the whole plot in Hong Kong with the conspiracy guy.
Yes.
Yeah, so. But yeah, listen, don't let me be a bummer. If you like the film, if you want to see some more, again, kind of delicious garbage, tacky disaster porn, this has certainly a spot and is certainly doing well over the weekend.
The weekend.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't like it, but I liked it almost. You know what I mean? It was so much better than I thought, but that's still not saying much.
Sure.
Okay, Vin. All right, lots of movies. 8 movies here, Vin. Anything else you want to touch on or look into the future? Anything you want to say? Or am I rolling credits here?
I think you're rolling credits. Looking forward to next week. That's the birthday app.
Are you looking forward to it? Okay.
Absolutely.
Have you watched anything yet?
No. Just because, I mean, this was kind of
it was a lot.
lofty.
It was a lot. Okay, folks. All right. Well, we hope you enjoyed this week, folks. And like always, thanks for listening. We'll see you next week on the Daily Ratings Podcast. Hey, if you enjoyed the podcast, if you would, give us a good rating or get the word out and tell a friend about us. And just a reminder that the Daily Ratings is completely producer supported. We want to stay away from advertising, and we don't want to have any paywalls or tier structures or subscriptions. It's all just value for value. So, are you finding value in any of the things we're doing here at the Daily Ratings? Then become a producer and donate whatever amount of value that is. Just go to the donations tab on thedailyratings.com, and while you're there, be sure to check out the massive amount of films that Vince has rated. So thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you next time on the Daily Ratings Podcast.